The diesel engine of the custom hauler idled rough on County Road 9 that September morning in 1980, its exhaust visible in the cool air just after dawn. Inside the cab sat a driver from Lincoln Equipment, clipboard on his lap, watching a scene unfold that he'd later describe at the cafe as the stubbornness he'd ever witnessed. Standing 20 feet in front of his truck, arms crossed, work boots planted in the gravel drive, was Tom Hendricks. 63 years old, 5'9", weathered as the barnwood behind him. And he wasn't moving. His son Michael stood off to the side, 28, already regretting every decision that had led to this moment. The truck had come to collect the family's John Deere 4020, the tractor that had worked their 340 acres for the past 14 years. In its place, gleaming in the early light on the other side of the barn, sat the reason for all this trouble. A brand-new versatile 835, a four-wheel drive beast with articulated steering, air-conditioned cab, and enough horsepower to pull half the county. Cost more than the Hendricks family had spent on machinery in the last decade combined. Michael had arranged the trade in secret. 3 weeks of phone calls, dealer visits, financing papers signed in town while his father was at the implement auction. The way Michael saw it, they needed to modernize or die. Every farm around them was getting bigger equipment, planting faster, covering more ground. The 4020 was 14 years old. Ancient, a relic from another era of farming. His father saw it differently. "You can stand there all morning," Tom said, his voice carrying that flat certainty that Michael had heard his whole life. "This tractor's not leaving." The driver shifted in his seat, clearly uncomfortable. He'd been paid to haul the 4020 to the dealer in Omaha. Simple job. Except nothing about this was simple. Michael stepped forward. "Dad, we talked about this." "No," Tom said, not moving his eyes from the truck. "You talked. I listened to you go on about horsepower and fancy cabs and beating the neighbors. But I don't recall agreeing to a damn thing." "You saw the Versatile. You know what it can do." "I know what the 4020 can do. Been doing it for 14 years without complaint." The morning sun was clearing the tree line now, warming the frost off the stubble fields. Harvest would start in 2 weeks. The corn was ready, the beans nearly there. And here they stood, father and son, with 2 tractors and one fundamental disagreement about the future. Michael had grown up on this land, third-generation Hendricks, to work this soil. He remembered riding with his father in that very 4020 when it was new in 1966, sitting on the fender while Tom plowed the North 40. The tractor had seemed enormous then, powerful, modern, everything a farm needed. But times had changed. The farm crisis of the 1970s had taught Michael to think bigger, work smarter, maximize efficiency. Half their neighbors had sold out or gone under. The ones who survived did it by scaling up, investing in technology, covering more acres with less labor. The 4020, with its open cab and mechanical simplicity, represented everything they needed to leave behind. His father saw the same machine and saw reliability. 14 harvests. 14 springs of planting, countless hours of plowing, disking, hauling. Not once had the 4020 left them stranded in a field. Not once had they missed a weather window because it wouldn't start. It was predictable, fixable. Tom knew every bolt and bearing in that tractor, could diagnose problems by sound alone. "The dealers got paperwork," Michael said, trying to keep his voice level. "Contracts signed." "Contract I never agreed to?" Tom finally turned to look at his son. "You're not the only one with a say in how this farm runs." "I'm the one running it most days now." The words hung there between them, sharper than Michael had intended. It was true. Tom's arthritis had been getting worse, making long hours in the tractor seat harder each season. Michael had taken on more of the field work, more of the decisions. But there was a difference between helping run the operation and making trades worth $30,000 without consultation. The driver honked once, gentle. Tom waved him off without looking. "You trust that new machine?" Tom asked. "Really trust it?" Michael gestured toward the Versatile. "It's got a warranty, dealer support. It's built for exactly what we need." "It's built complicated. Air conditioning, electronic controls. You know how to fix that when it breaks down in the middle of a field?" "It's not going to break down. That's the whole point of buying new." Tom laughed, not a happy sound. "Nothing's so new it won't break, son, especially not something that complicated." "You remember the Johnson's new combine last year? 2 weeks into harvest, computer system failed. Sat in the field for 3 days waiting on a technician from Kansas City. By the time they got running again, the rain had knocked down half their corn. That's one case, one bad example. It's the example that matters when it's your crop in the field." Michael felt his frustration building. This was exactly why he'd handled the trade quietly. He'd known his father would resist, would cling to the old ways, would find every reason to avoid progress. The farming world was evolving rapidly. Satellite guidance systems were coming, computer-controlled planters, massive combines that could harvest 100 acres a day. The 40-20 was a manual transmission, mechanical linkage machine from an era that was disappearing fast. But standing here now, watching his father block the drive with nothing but stubbornness and conviction, Michael felt something else creeping in. Doubt, not about the Versatile's capabilities. That machine was a marvel of modern engineering. But doubt about his own certainty, his rush to erase 14 years of reliable service for something newer and shinier. The standoff continued. The driver smoked a cigarette, waiting. The sun climbed higher. The morning chores still needed doing. "Let's make a deal," Tom finally said. "Keep both tractors through harvest. Let that new machine prove itself. It does everything you say it will. I'll drive the 40-20 to town myself, hand over the keys. But if there's problems, the trade's off. We keep what we've got." Michael considered this. It wasn't what he wanted. Paying for both machines through harvest would strain their finances. But his father's terms were reasonable, more reasonable than Michael had expected. And harvest was only 2 weeks away. A 2-week test before committing fully. "Fine," Michael said. 2 weeks. Tom nodded and stepped aside. The driver, relieved, put the truck in reverse and backed down the drive. Neither of them could have predicted what those 2 weeks would bring. Harvest started on a Wednesday, perfect conditions. The Versatile performed beautifully. Its power was undeniable, pulling the 12-row cultivator through the south fields at speeds the 40-20 could never match. Michael ran it 15 hours that first day, barely feeling the fatigue thanks to the air-conditioned cab and comfortable seat. By Friday, they'd finished the corn on the south section, a job that would have taken a week with the old setup. Tom watched from the 40-20, running bean pods to the elevator, doing the lighter work. He didn't comment on the Versatile's performance, didn't need to. The numbers spoke clearly enough. Monday brought the first sign of trouble. A hydraulic line on the Versatile started weeping fluid, nothing major but enough to warrant attention. Michael spent 2 hours tracking down the right replacement hose in town. Tuesday, the air conditioning compressor made a grinding noise that had the dealer scratching his head. Wednesday was fine. Thursday, fine. Friday, the electronic fuel governor started acting up, causing the engine to surge unpredictably. Each problem got fixed. Each fix took time. Time that, in harvest season, was the most valuable commodity on any farm. The real crisis hit on a Tuesday, 16 days into harvest. They'd saved the North 240 for last, the heaviest soil on the place, timing it for after a dry spell. Michael was running the Versatile with the chisel plow, turning under stubble in preparation for fall planting. The tractor was working hard, all that advertised horsepower pulling against clay soil that hadn't been worked yet. 3 hours in, the engine died. Not sputtered, not coughed, just stopped, like someone had flipped a switch. Michael tried everything. Checked fuel, checked oil, checked electrical connections. Nothing. The machine sat there in the middle of the field, 200 horsepower of modern farming technology rendered useless by some failure he couldn't diagnose or fix. He walked back to the barn, the late September sun hot on his shoulders, and found his father greasing the 40 seconds fittings. Tom looked up. Problem? Versatile's dead. Out in the north field. His father set down the grease gun carefully. Dead how? Just stopped. Won't turn over, won't click, won't do anything. Tom wiped his hands on a rag, thinking, call the dealer? Already did. They can't get a tech out until Thursday. Thursday. 2 days away. 2 perfect harvest days with weather that wouldn't last. The forecast showed rain moving in for the weekend. Tom walked to the shop, came back with his toolbox. Let's go look. They took the pickup out to where the Versatile sat silent and defeated in the half-plowed field. Tom spent 20 minutes checking connections, testing circuits, his arthritic hands working methodically through the tractor systems. Finally, he stood back. Something in the electrical system. Computer controller, maybe. Fuel shutoff relay. Something I can't fix here. He looked at his son. Could wait for the tech. Michael stared at the disabled machine, at the work left undone, at the clouds building on the western horizon. All his arguments about efficiency, about modern farming, about leaving the old ways behind, none of it mattered with the tractor sitting dead in the field. Or, Tom said quietly, we could finish with the 40-20. The old tractor wasn't as fast, wasn't as powerful, didn't have air conditioning or electronic controls. But it started on the first turn of the key. It pulled the chisel plow through that heavy clay soil, steady and reliable, the way it had for 14 years. Michael and his father took turns running it, working through the afternoon and into the evening, racing the weather. They finished the North 240 Thursday night, working by the tractor's headlights, just as the first drops of rain began to fall. The Versatile sat in the barn for 3 weeks while parts were ordered and technicians made 2 separate visits. The problem turned out to be a faulty wiring harness in the computer system, something that required factory-specific diagnostic equipment to identify. When it finally ran again, it ran fine. Michael used it for fall tillage, for hauling, for all the work it was designed to do. But he never went back to the dealer about completing the trade. The 40-20 stayed. Both tractors stayed. They worked side by side for the next 15 years until Michael's son, Tom's grandson, took over the farm in 1995. By then, the 40-20 had logged over 12,000 hours, more than any machine the family had ever owned. When they finally retired it in 1998, it still started on the first try. Some lessons, Tom Hendricks believed, can only be learned by experience. You can talk about reliability, about proven performance, about the value of simplicity. But until you've watched a $30,000 investment sitting useless in a field while a 14-year-old tractor finishes the job, the lesson doesn't stick. Michael learned it that September, learned that newer doesn't always mean better. That complexity creates vulnerability. That sometimes the stubborn resistance of a father who's farmed for 40 years comes from wisdom earned in 1,000 small moments of breakdown and repair. The North 240 got planted on schedule that fall. The rain that came did no damage, and on a farm where margins were always tight and weather never waited, those 2 days, those critical 2 days saved by the trusty John Deere 40-20, made the difference between a successful season and disaster. Progress matters in farming. Technology matters. But so does knowing what you can count on when everything else fails.